Happy New Day, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Since last month, there has been a surge of stories and experiences being shared with me by many different people. And a lot of those stories are directly related to the videos that I did on psychic and spiritual attacks, as well as the entities that are operating with many different people on the planet. I wanted to share 3 different stories that I found really interesting that came to me to help you all understand on a deeper level what's going on and how important it is to know how to trust yourself and know how to listen to your inner guidance and to listen to your body. Because of the many distractions and all of the chaos and confusion that's taking place on the planet, a lot of people are desensitized and numb to actually feeling themselves. And it's really difficult to know what thoughts belong to you and what emotions belong to you when you're not putting yourself in a position to have alone time and to self-reflect. If you're always in other people's energies, then you start to become what is around you. You start to take on the energies of other people. So you take on thoughts and ideas and behaviors and feelings and a lot of different things that can confuse you. You find yourself operating based on the energies that you are engulfed in. And you being one person, being engulfed in multiple energy fields and not getting time to yourself and being in your own aura, that's very destabilizing to who you are as an individual. And it makes it very difficult for you to have discernment and to make correct decisions for your best and highest good. Based on the topic of this video, I challenge everyone who's listening to this to consciously pay attention to your body as you listen to this message. There are going to be some people that resonate with the message and some people that don't. Regardless of what it is that you feel, just allow yourself to feel. Pay attention to if your stomach tightens up. Pay attention to if you find your hands clenched or if you feel yourself sitting on the edge of your seat. Pay attention to if when something is said, if it hits home and it makes you feel a aha, or it makes a light bulb go off, or it makes your body open up and feel like it's receiving something. Pay attention if you feel knots in your stomach, if you feel closed off, if you feel that this message is causing you resistance. And I would strongly suggest, if you do feel resistance in listening to this message, the best thing for you to do is cut it off immediately. And that's for your best and highest good. Because if you are feeling resistance while listening to something or being in someone's energy, your body is letting you know that it doesn't like it, and it would really appreciate it if you would disconnect from that. So now I will begin. The first story comes from a young lady who reached out to me last month, and she took it upon herself to look into her human design and to understand the patterns that she has developed in her life and why she can't seem to get out of certain situations and why she keeps attracting the same situations over and over again. And in her learning about her human design, it helped her to see clearly and to really have a logical, concrete understanding of what she had been experiencing her whole life. And she realized that she has unconsciously been a slave to her family. And because she was always in her family's energy and she had got into this pattern of always doing whatever her family wanted her to do, she didn't recognize that she was living in a toxic situation for so many years, even as an adult now. So she decided to go away for a while, and she didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell her family. She just left and went to another state and took some time to herself, which was something that she never really did. And her doing that showed her a side of her family that she had never experienced before. Her family, according to her, turned into monsters. They turned into very low vibrational, irrational, demanding, negative, angry people. And they said things to her to make her feel as if she was the worst person on earth for just simply deciding to take a little vacation, and she did it without letting them know. They couldn't see that she needed that. They didn't care that she needed that. They were just used to always having her energy available for them to have their needs met at the expense of her needs being met. So her getting away for a while, she started to discover things about herself. She felt completely different than when she was with her family. And it was only when she disconnected that she felt like life came back into her body. She didn't realize how numb and desensitized she was based on always being engulfed in her family's energy. She felt like she could breathe for the first time. And the thought of going back to her family made her feel like her stomach was being balled up very, very tightly. She said the knots that she felt in her stomach at the thought of her time away being over, it was almost unbearable. And that's because her body had been freed. Her body had been freed from bondage that she didn't even realize that she was in. And the thought of going back caused a response in her body. And her body was pleading with her to not go back. The body doesn't care about if it's family or if it's somebody that you've known for 20 years, or the body doesn't care about those things. All the body knows is that its survival is threatened. Its health is threatened. That's all it knows. So her body was pleading with her whenever she thought about going back to her family to not go back. And then she had to also know that her family was not what she thought they were all of that time, because they showed their true colors when she disconnected from them to go have her vacation. They turned into monsters, and this is where she was going to go back to. So now not only is her body giving her alerts and telling her no, don't go back there. Now she's consciously aware of the toxicity level of the situation that she had been in her whole life. So now she's in a position of learning how to trust herself. She's in a position of understanding that what she feels, what her body tells her, is more important than anything else, because the family that she thought would always be there for her, the family that she thought that she could always count on, all of them turned on her. Just from her taking a few days to herself. Years of being a part of her own family crumbled instantly. And that's very destabilizing to a lot of people that deal with situations like that. That's very hurtful. It's psychologically damaging because her family was everything that she knew. And instantly they revealed who they really are. And they're people that she is now incapable of being around. So she has to start over. She has to start a brand new life as an adult based on trusting herself, which is something that she never got the opportunity to do because she put her trust in her family. And not all families are like this, but there are many people who experience family members who are like this. Family members who use the title of family and the line blood is thicker than water. They use those things to manipulate and to control family members who are not capable of trusting themselves and knowing how to say no and knowing how to listen to themselves. So her life of trusting in herself and putting herself first has officially began. The second story comes from a young man who has been involved with recreational activities for a long time. And due to other aspects of his life not being in balance, and due to the stress and not having the things that are necessary for him to have harmony in his life, he had become addicted to these recreational activities. And he had a friend of many years who was someone that he always linked up with to engage in these recreational activities. And his awareness, his consciousness is changing, and he's wanting to do better for himself. He's wanting to step into his full potential. And one of the things that he recognized that he needs to stop doing is engaging in these recreational activities that he has become addicted to. So he told his friend that he was considering no longer engaging in these recreational activities. And the friend responded with a very abstract and irrational statement. And in this statement, he pretty much said that if the young man stopped his recreational activities, he would experience very devastating effects. And in me hearing this, I immediately recognized that the person who he thinks is his friend definitely is engaged with another entity that was the voice behind that particular statement. Because the statement was, it wasn't of a human being with a conscience. So we were both able to recognize that the friend is definitely dealing with some very heavy demonic entities. And there's more to the story, but just focusing on this part, the friend is very much under attack. So this young man is now aware of that, but there's a resistance because he is connected to the long timeline of his relationship with his friend. And the other part knows that his friend is not really there in the friend's body. So there's a confusion going on because naturally he wants to help his friend. He wants to talk some sense into his friend, but the friend is not there. He's no longer communicating with his friend. So there are a lot of people who are dealing with situations like that as well. And that's very uncomfortable, especially when you know. But then you have this long timeline of what you have experienced, and you have all of these good memories and all of these things that keep you latched on to the relationship. So it's very hard to accept that the body that is your friend or whoever you are connected to is being operated by a low vibrational entity. When he's not around his friend, he feels lighter. He feels good about himself. But when his friend reaches out, he experiences that same stomach and knots feeling. He feels resistance, and he hasn't quite disconnected from the friend. But every time that he engages, he experiences very heavy negative energy. And because he's consciously aware of what's going on with the friend, the resistance within his body is much, much stronger. So it becomes harder and harder to engage with the friend. And it becomes more hurtful to his body to engage with the friend. And this is what happens. Your body has always told you the truth. Always. If you ended up in a 20-year marriage and it ended up falling apart, if you reflect, more than likely you will recall a moment in the very beginning of you connecting with that person where your body gave you some resistance, or something within you told you this isn't a good idea. But if you disregarded it, then more than likely you experienced 20 years of rough times until eventually the energy just couldn't hold anymore and it finally collapsed. So when your body says no, and then you become consciously aware as to why it's saying no, your body registers that as, okay, now that you consciously know, you definitely don't have an excuse. Because if I, the body, tell you no, and you consciously know why I'm telling you no, and you consciously disregard me, your vessel, and put me in the situation anyway, I'm going to feel extra terrible because it is my belief as your body that you are trying to kill me. That's why the feeling is so much more intense once you become consciously aware of why your body is telling you no. Your body thinks that you're trying to commit suicide. This next story I found really interesting because I could relate to a lot of the different scenarios that were shared. There were a lot of similarities in this experience that mirrored situations that I have had in my personal life. This story comes from a young lady who has a friend of 12 years. And this young lady is very much into spirituality and keeping her vibrations high and meditation and yoga and doing things that are about keeping her mind and her body and her spirit cleansed as much as she can. And 12 years ago, she was completely unaware of the world and reality that she lives now. She didn't know anything about chakras or consciousness or expansion. She didn't know anything about that. She didn't have much. She didn't know where she was going in life. She didn't have a job. She didn't have a degree in school. She really didn't have anything. She was just living. And this particular friend that she met, at the time that she connected with this friend, her not having awareness of herself, she never established any boundaries. She didn't have discernment. She didn't have any of that. And that is the foundation that she laid with this particular friend. And for 12 years, she has always made herself available to this friend. Always. It's very similar to the first story with the young lady and her family. Whenever the friend would call, she would answer. Whenever the friend needed her, she would be right there. And she saw things early into the friendship that let her know that there was some type of split personality situation going on with the friend. There would be moments to where the friend was very, very nice and a very fun person to be around. And then there were other times where the friend would just go into a rage, just get very, very angry. And nobody really understood why. And this particular friend is a pretty popular individual. So she's not the only person that knows about this particular friend. Many other people have seen the split personality aspects of this person. But for whatever reason, no one has ever really said anything or acknowledged it or encouraged the friend to get help. None of that. So now this young lady is more aware, and in her focusing on building herself and establishing a better life for her and her family, she started getting this message that she needs to disconnect from this friend, along with several other people in her life. And it was a very strong feeling from within her. It was her body letting her know what she needed to do for herself. So the friend reached out to her, and because of the 12 years of this pattern where she always makes herself available for the friend thought that she was going to get her normal response. But this time, the young lady chose not to respond. And she said that something hit her when the friend attempted to contact her. She said that she noticed that the friend had no regard for her life. She had no regard for the fact that she has a family. She had no regard for the possibility that she might have been in an emergency. The friend didn't ask how she was doing. She didn't check to see if everything was okay in her world. Nothing. The friend just reached out demanding her time, her energy, and attention right then and there. And she said that the way her body responded, it just said enough is enough. This is over. This toxic friendship is over. And she didn't respond. 2 days later, the so-called friend sent another message. And the message was very, very angry. Extremely angry. And intuitively, me and this young lady were able to recognize that the friend had gotten used to her being a source of energy along with the other people that are in this friend's life. So she jumps from person to person to get whatever type of energy they supply to her. And these are the types of relationships she establishes. And the young lady, having a high spiritual energy, this so-called friend wanted a dose. And based on the raging response of the so-called friend, intuitively, it felt as if she was not able to get the doses of energy from other people the way that she wanted. So she was coming to the young lady to get a double dose to make up for the doses that she wasn't getting from the other people in her life. Because when the so-called friend reached out, she reached out as if it was an emergency. And because the young lady listened to herself and listened to her body and said no, she was able to see, based on the next message, that it wasn't an emergency. It was just a low vibrational entity wanting a dose of life force energy from her. And when she didn't give it to her, which is what she's been used to for 12 years, it caused a very negative reaction. Just like when you have someone who is addicted to a drug. If they don't get the drug, it's going to be problems. The drug is needed to keep the person sane. And if they don't get it, expect to get anger, rage, very irrational accusations, all types of abstract things that have no truth behind them. And that's what happened. The true entity behind this so-called friend came out when she did not get her dose. So luckily, this young lady was already in a position to disconnect from this friend of 12 years. So when she saw the real reaction and she saw the mask come off after that 12-year toxic friendship, there was a huge sense of being freed from an attachment that was taking up space in her life. This last story comes from a young man who had a friend or an acquaintance lure him into a situation, and he didn't have any discernment in this situation. And this particular person that lured him in got him involved in altering his consciousness through some chemicals. And once that happened, he was attacked by demonic forces. He has attempted to do many different things to try to remove these forces from him. And he was someone who was very consistent in meditation and being positive and being high vibrational. And he even has pictures to show his before and after. So he has pictures that show his energy and what he looked like before this particular situation. And he has pictures that show him afterwards. And you can easily see the significance in the deterioration of his life force energy. He was able to recognize that he definitely should not have engaged with the person, but sometimes we can still find ourselves in sticky situations, even if we are attempting to keep our vibrations high and have certain habits that we do that are positive and healthy. It doesn't make anyone exempt from still having experiences that are negative. So this person is aware that they shouldn't have engaged, but they underestimated the power of the person that lured them in, along with the chemicals that were involved that caused an energetic opening and portal way to allow those low vibrational entities to come in. And these entities are strong. They're very strong. And we see this happen all the time throughout the world. We see people who used to have smiles on their faces, and now it's something completely different. And even with this person being in this situation and having these negative entities on them, they are still coherent enough to know exactly what they did wrong. They can pinpoint the mistake that they made, and it goes right back to the fact that they didn't listen to themselves. They didn't listen to that divine inner guidance that is built into them. They allowed that outside seduction to come in and catch them off guard. So it's very important to be consistent in the things that you're doing to keep your vibrations high, and also understand that you can slip up. There was an early indication that came from the inside of him to let him know, don't do it. But sometimes when people find themselves in high vibrational states and they eat healthy and they have certain practices that they do to keep their vibrations high, sometimes people can let that get to their heads and can feel invincible and feel like they can supersede other energies that they don't have the knowledge of to know what type of tricks they have up their sleeves. Now, yes, in some cases, you can raise your vibrations and get to a point to where certain low vibrational energies don't affect you. But if you allow that to get you to the point of being careless and disregarding your own inner guidance, then you just lost your protection. Your inner guidance is your protection. And if you disregard it, you just lost it. And you opened yourself up to be susceptible to whatever is waiting outside of your energy field. There's a lot of things that are waiting, especially if you've been conserving your energy and you've been practicing meditation and high vibrational things in your life. You've been building light. All of those things are very potent, and it's entities that would rather get to you before they get to the person who's on the lower end of the spectrum. So if you're one of those people that have been actively pursuing a higher vibration and you slip up and you disregard your protection and your inner guidance, you're going to be the first one that the entities want to get to. So with all of these stories, and there's more, I'm sure some of you all listening can relate to these type of situations. But it's all about listening to yourself. It's about being able to identify what feels good. And there's no way that you can be sure of what is right for you if you're always being influenced by the outside world. If you don't take time to be in your own energy. I personally feel that I have perfected and mastered what it's like to be manipulated and influenced by other people. I know what it's like to be so wrapped up in other people's energy that I can't think straight and I'm not feeling or listening to my body. I know what that's like. And it's only when I learn how to put my body first, follow my inner authority, no matter what is going on around me, that I saw how I don't want anything else to be my authority. It's only when I learned to follow my inner guidance that I realized there is no other guidance for me, because my inner guidance is directly connected to the universe. If I'm going to consider listening to an outside authority, it's only because my inner authority is the first response that I listen to. And my inner authority says it's okay to listen to what that person is saying because I resonate with it from internally. I'm not being influenced by what everybody else is resonating with. I resonate with it because it's already within me. And this person is just a reflection of something that I already feel on the inside. If you don't know how to listen to your body, if you don't know how to listen to your inner guidance, then what's going to happen is, more than likely, you're going to choose what the majority is saying. And the majority could be headed towards walking right off of a cliff because the leader that they're following said so. So are you going to be the person that trusts somebody that you don't know if you can trust or not and be led into bondage? Or are you going to learn how to listen to the one thing that is designed to keep you alive? The one thing that will never lie to you. Your body and its internal guidance. Nobody in your life is guaranteed to be here for your whole life. Not your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your children, nobody. What's the one thing that you have from when you're born until the day that you die? What's the one thing that you have? Guaranteed. You. Your body. It's all you got. It's all that you have to live this life. If you don't know how to trust it, what do you think you are going to experience in your life? If you don't know how to have discernment, if you don't know how to say no, what do you think you're going to experience in life? So do you want to keep wasting your time and keep wasting your energy by listening to all of that stuff out there? Or do you want to start being your own boss? Do you want to start making decisions for yourself? I've never felt so good in my life. Being confident that whatever my body is telling me is the truth. If you want to follow people, fine. But the least you can do is learn how to let your body decide who to follow. So at least you can follow correctly. At least you can be a follower that knows when to switch leaders. if that's what you want to do. If you can't trust yourself, how will you know who to trust? So I hope all of these stories were helpful to the listeners out there. And I hope that you all were able to use this audio to experiment with feeling your body and allowing your inner guidance to let you know, does it resonate as truth to me or not? I'm just one person. This is my reality. This is my understanding, my experience, my truth. And my reality is not for everybody. But if you're listening, it's very important for you to be able to have discernment on whether or not my reality or anybody else's reality is for you. Thank you to all the people who gave me permission to use their stories to help educate and support others who may be going through similar situations in life. And thank you all for tuning in and listening for your mind to shine. Until next time.